So yeah, we'll get into that. But first and foremost, I definitely want to thank you for being willing to participate. It's good to see your face. You got that smile on. How you doing today?
I think I've had about the same last year as you. So today I'm
There
doing
we
pretty
go.
good.
There we go. There we go. 2018 was tough for a lot of people, not just myself. I've seen a lot of people going through struggle. And then there's a lot of people, like I have a really good gift of discernment. There's a lot of people that pretend everything was like great in their life. And when you could really see behind the curtains that it really wasn't. So I don't know if that was a coping mechanism or what, but yeah, I mean, as I was going through it, it kind of helped to see that other people were struggling through it as well because it created like an environment of not negativity, but positivity. Because when you are drowning, you're like, okay, and you see other people drowning, you're like, okay, I'm not drowning by myself. How can we lift each other up to get back up to surface water and out of this mess? So um, I definitely could say 2018 was learning for me, and 2019 is where I'm gonna get back onto excelling. So yeah, well, all
So
right. So I definitely wanted to practice my skills with you, man. And first and foremost, I want to start by like, what are you up to nowadays? Like, I know you had a lot of things going on in the past. What are you up to now?
well, I'm still figuring out my health. Um, my housing and lifestyle stuff has gotten a little bit more stable, which is great.
That's
Um,
great.
I'm throwing a uh, big charity event in about a month and a half, um, where I've got about 100 thriving clients that I'm going to
Nice, nice. That's a great amount.
Yep, I'm going to put 8 charities in front of because Thrivent clients have to donate before the end of March in order to elect where that tax write-off's going to. Um, so that's going to be kind of cool. We're going to do like a little Shark Tank pitch, have all the charities get up and pitch their ideas. I'll be coaching them, that sort of thing. Um,
Nice.
I go to India for 3 months this time,
Mm,
March through June.
and the
I'm gonna,
national travel.
yeah, I'm going to continue building the partnerships out there that I've got for the club. And yeah, let's see, I've got AIP willing to help us raise donations. We've got, I just got a gig yesterday as kind of a project manager, business consultant,
Mm,
on full time for a year. I'm gonna try.
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm gonna try and make the business that I'll be working for into a full retirement vehicle for the owner.
Okay.
Uh, and then yeah, got married.
And congratulations. I wanted to ask how like that was gonna go because man, marriage is a beautiful thing. So congratulations to you. Like when was the date?
We got married December 9th. So
All right. So how's it feel? How's it feel to I know I'm a dad now, so how's it feel, man?
honestly, it's been some good, some bad. It's been
Mm-hmm.
some great, some terrible. I love my wife, and there are some really good aspects of our relationship that have come and just truly bloomed in getting married. Um, some comfortability, some trust.
Yep.
We hit a hiccup with moving into the wrong apartment, and
Ooh,
that caused some physical issues for me and made my wife feel a little insecure for a couple weeks. Uh,
got you.
Turned out our apartment had mold on it, and they allowed us to break lease, but it was just unfortunate. Like, we moved into it and then had to move out.
Yeah, nah, mold is not cool. I definitely had a place that I lived in during college that had mold, and man, my stuff was destroyed. Oh God. So yeah, I'm glad you guys were able to get out because that is not a fun experience at all, and it will affect your health.
Yeah, for me, I pick up on it really fast
Yep.
with my allergies being as severe as they are.
Yep.
Speaking of which, you need to pray about me getting this grant that I've been applying to for mail, so that I can get the proper treatment I need.
I got you. I got you. Prayers are going up for sure. So with you getting married and saying, because like, okay, vulnerability is also in this conversation, and you share with me. So for me, you got married December 9th. I got married December 15th of 2017, only to find out that my wife asked for a divorce on July 27th, 25th, 27th. No warning signs whatsoever, none whatsoever. We never had an argument or anything like that. But then she asked for a divorce, and it shocked me because I'm sure when you made the steps to get married, you can envision what you want your future to look like. So when that person asks for a divorce, it's like, whoa, that whole vision that you had set up, it just disappears. Like it's gone with that person. So it kind of makes you feel like uncomfortable. And so that happened for me. And then also she told me she was pregnant like a couple months prior to the divorce. And it put, like, you talked about trust. I was like, how do I know that this baby is mine if you're asking for a divorce? It just doesn't make sense. And me, like, I love the Bible. So something I was always told from the Bible is the truth will set you free. And that didn't sit well with me. Like okay, that phrase is cool and all, but it was like, all right, this is not providing me any resolution or making me happier or making me feel any better. And then I realized that it was because I didn't know the line before the truth will set you free. It's knowing. It's when you know the truth, that's when it will set you free. And because I didn't know the truth, I had to live through 7 more months of agony, like just trying to figure out what the heck happened in my marriage, whether this child that was coming was mine or not. And, when was he coming? I didn't know anything. Like literally once my wife said she asked for the divorce around the 25th, it was no communication ever since then. And I was like, this is crazy. I got blocked on social media, everything. And it was like, well, what happened? What did I do? And she said, I didn't do anything. She just wanted to be selfish. So coming into a partnership and a marriage, what lessons have you learned so far that can actually help you with longevity?
Um, give me just a second.
Perfect. No problem.
Yeah. I was in the living room.
Like
it was the quietest room, but my wife is waking up, and I don't want to disturb her ability to have breakfast or conversations.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah. So I think the question was, what lessons have I learned
so far? Yep, that can help you provide longevity for a relationship. It's good that you're thinking. I love it.
Yeah, no, I tackle things head on, and this is just rules for relationship in general that are more highlighted than they are new. Tackle things head on, but time them. Know the person you're talking to enough that when you bring something up, it's not when they're in a low moment.
Okay. Yep.
And the way you say things is extremely important.
It's not about what you say, it's how you say it and how it makes the other person feel. I agree.
Right. Because quite honestly, a lot of problems that arise in relationship are kind of like allergic reactions. This these people all around us are part of our body as a human race. Sometimes we don't know what friend or foe is on an emotional level,
Yep.
even if we known somebody for ages. Um, that's because we're always trying to reevaluate life.
Yep.
We're always trying to know what's safe, what isn't, what's good, what's bad. And in a moment, if I'm at a low spot and you tell me something hard and you tell me in the wrong way, you're probably going to get a very different reaction out of me.
Yep.
Um, so I sit down and think about that all the time when I'm applying it to other people. And I'd say that has been really highlighted in marriage because some of the hiccups we've had haven't been easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still going to have a small conversation with my wife. But with the ability to be gentle in the way I communicate,
Yep.
not only will the net result be that something might change that I would greatly appreciate. Um, it, it it won't take nearly as long, and it won't hurt the other person
Yep.
in the request. Um, so if I were to give anybody any advice, it would be know when and how to say things.
It's good.
Yeah, and don't take
That's
forever to say it.
yeah, some people like to avoid confrontation or like can let things, fester until it just blows up at one
Yeah,
time.
you can wait for the right time all of the next 20 years. Um, the most important thing is to make the right time.
Oh,
And so sit down and really evaluate, okay, how long will it take me to form my words? Okay, it's going to take me a couple days. Fine. 2 days, when can I make this possible?
mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and pick a time that you know that you're typically going to have set aside for you and your wife, for you and your uh, relationship, and then carve out some time in the middle of that. Don't go, hey honey, I'm gonna tell you in 2 days something that I really need to talk about with you. Just know if you're gonna meet typically to say hi at 3 o'clock. So that's your time every day.
Oh,
When you show up at 3, well, in the morning of that day, know what the day is gonna look like and kind of reevaluate. But if 3 o'clock's still good, show up at 3 and just say, hey, look, I got something I need to talk with you about. You got a
oh,
because again, the whole point is to put the other person at ease and not let them sit anxious as to what you're trying to say for 2 days.
and so I was gonna ask you, what you saying that you're saying, hey, honey, at 3 o'clock, I have something I need to talk to you about. You don't think that they'll be sitting anxious during that time frame, like especially if
No,
you
no,
hit
no.
them
I
with
mean,
that?
show up at 3 o'clock and ask.
Okay,
Not tell her or him
okay,
at 3 o'clock. Show up at 3 o'clock.
okay.
You know, make a point of it.
And you brought up a really good point on the aspect of, interactions with other people when you're at low moments. Have you ever been at a low moment, especially with you, you're doing the business, you got the consultant job and things like that. Have you ever been at a low moment and still had to put forth your best effort within a business or work or in the charity work or anything like that?
All the time. All the
Okay.
time.
And
Especially
what's your solution?
well, the point isn't to erase all of the low moment aspects um, when you're going into things. It's to sit down and evaluate whether or not they belong in that space, right? If they don't belong in that space, make room for them elsewhere. And that's easier said than done.
Yeah, can you give me a practical, like I need a practical application of that. Like give me a real life example.
Oh, it's just practice. Practical is just practice. I you know me, but for the rest of the audience that we're supposed to be interviewing for, I have gone through some of the most severe symptoms of my life of the last couple of years, developing an autoimmune health problem. So I've had everything from chronic fatigue to memory issues that are so bad that I find myself writing paragraphs that are all the same sentence because I stop and
Man.
think at the end of the sentence what I'm trying to say, and then I write the same sentence over again. Um, I have muscle weakness and neurological pain, neuropathy. That's kind of like putting my body inside of an outlet. Every single piece of me is just like there's electricity and sensitivity all across my skin.
Sheesh.
I have had my hormones drop, my cortisol, my testosterone have from March through June of last year, when I wasn't expecting allergy season to hit me here in Arizona. I moved 2 states, well, multiple states, to try and get away from
Mm-hmm.
an environment that caused me year-round allergies. And I ended up having to take steroids and testosterone shots at 28 years old just to keep functional to some extent. Um, and yeah, at my very worst, I go into paralysis and I lose time. Um, so I've got a lot of that that's come up, and you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine how that affects
Oh yeah.
marriage and relationship. Nobody really wants to have a husband or a wife whose hormones are so low that they are no longer interested in sex or other things, right?
Yep. Yep.
And have that periodically happen. That's that's
And
just I really appreciate my wife. Let's put it that way.
yep.
um, I I have had to reschedule meetings that I missed because I was in a bout of paralysis.
Oh,
I've the Airbnb I was running last year
I
for three
remember you
months of
telling
the
me
year.
that. Yep.
I wasn't able to, right? So I've had to learn very quickly that the one thing the world really requires of me is my best, not perfection, not that I be able to get everything done. People notice your struggle, people notice your ability, especially if you communicate it
Mm-hmm.
and you do so humbly. And there's an adjustment period to that. If they've seen you be excellent for years and then suddenly you're
Falling off.
struggling,
Yep.
yeah, there's a big adjustment. But all you can give is your best. And for me, that looks like saying, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'm actually just real sick at the moment. Spike in symptoms. Can we reschedule?" Or, "Okay, so this Airbnb thing would be too hard for me to do physically right now. Let me fill the room with part-time renters."
Nope.
Right? And you know, it's not going to happen right away because physically it's hard for me to do anything. Sometimes I can't even lift my cell phone. So just as soon as I'm able, fill the room with part-time renters, and talking to people who have been very kind to support me in opening that Airbnb and letting them know what's going on with my health and seeing them be very patient, right? Um,
So I know that you
there have
mentioned.
been fewer weeks in the year where I have had everything go right. It's much more often that I have something really strong and potent and hard to deal with impact at least once a week. And yeah, I
And
think
that
give yourself room for the negatives. Feel
okay.
them. Make a point to have room for them emotionally, because unless you can dwell in that and learn to cope with it and learn to recognize it, you know, emotions are kind of like they're kind of like people who just want to talk, right? As soon as I'm to pester you as much, right? Um, at least that's the case for me. As soon as I hear out what I'm feeling, so to speak, give myself words for it, give myself the ability to address it, name it, I can then decide what to do about it. And that has to be something that I give time to, just like timing out a hard conversation with somebody you love. You have to do the same with yourself. And sometimes this means I have to have a hard conversation with myself.
Yep. Yep.
But you
Honesty.
start out the time the same way. So those are the two things I'd say is know that you are not meant to be infinitely capable.
Okay.
And that this is a long-term game. I think one of my favorite quotes this year is that anything you're capable of doing in your lifetime is not worth doing. If that's your goal for your life, it's not worth doing. Um, because quite frankly, it's an old style philosophy, but if it doesn't take several generations to do, it's probably too easy.
Wow.
Right? And so that's one really cool quote that I got this year. Um, just when you have the moment that you can do things, do it. And that doesn't necessarily mean physically. If you're emotionally unable to do something, that's okay too. Set
Yep.
aside time to emotionally do stuff, um, because that's how you keep the things separate. That's how you keep the good things good and the bad things addressable. um, if you can't really set aside time to discern between the two, you're going to really struggle.
And
If you start
and
me guys.
you okay, that's good because a common theme that I'm hearing you talk about is time, having the time to set aside to like either put together your words, address certain emotions that you may be facing, to deal with the low moments in your life. So how do you provide yourself with all this time? Like if I was a normal person, like with a regular job, family, kids, all that stuff, like how would I be able to set aside that time to do all those things?
Okay. That brings up a really good point, and that's this. In this culture, in the U.S. culture,
Mm-hmm.
where independence is king, and having to rely on anybody else is
kind of frowned upon.
Yeah, it's almost a sin. Um, one of the things that we've done to try and make ourselves independent is sacrifice our ability to be responsive. Um, because what we've done is we've created structure around our lives to the point where nothing fits that's awkward or uncomfortable. And the whole system stalls as soon as anything goes wrong. So we need to reimagine time not as a structured thing where I've built a schedule that I must adhere to. We need to reimagine time as a fluid thing that's going to go on for as long as we go on.
Nope.
Longer than we go on. And as Simon Sinek puts it, we need to stop playing the finite game and start playing the infinite game.
Okay.
Because it's the infinite game that wins. The infinite game is just about making it last as long as possible. And the finite game is about doing the best for a short period of time and then what?
Yep. And then you come to that moment of and then what? But if you're playing infinitely, like you said, make the moments last as long as you can.
Yeah, because ultimately the finite game loses 100% of the time to the infinite game. Say you're amazingly successful at something finite. That's only going to last so long.
Yep.
And say you suck at something in the finite, again, that's only going to last so long. But you're only able to see that from an infinite perspective.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
That was a great example.
So I spend my time reevaluating what's supposed to happen when, and giving myself room to do that. I know what tasks need to be done. I know when they need to be done by. But the order that they have to happen,
Any order? Not as important.
Yeah. So if I have something pop up in my life that needs addressing immediately, I know exactly when I can put that into my schedule. Right? Because I have the flexibility to put it into the schedule. So that's you just gotta build your life around that. And if I go into a 40-hour work week and I'm working 40 hours a week, I'm still gonna have spots in that week that are flexible. Make a point to put things into that spot. That's really what that is.
That's good. So I guess on the aspect of, even with you, right? Like, have you ever worked a corporate job where you weren't doing entrepreneurship? Like, how did you even get into like entrepreneurship? I guess the entrepreneurial world, because that is like a separate and total world than just being told what to do all the time and you just showing up for a job. Like, what inspired you to get into that field?
Honestly, I think I was kind of raised in the element of necessity for that field.
Okay.
In that I'm former foster youth, and your audience, after my stepdad died around when I turned 8, my mom went off the bandwagon for about a year and a half, and she was using heroin and morphine very heavily, or trying to quit cold turkey, and she just kind of alternated weeks. And both things caused her to have ultimately a lot of bed rest. and to not know what was going on, and to not even know what day it was most of the time. So I was cooking and cleaning, um, working for $2 an hour, getting my siblings back and forth from school, and growing stuff in the backyard and selling it door to door just to make ends meet.
Mm.
And I think that was part of the foundation for an entrepreneurial mindset, which is I'm 8, 9 years old.
Yep.
I have this need that needs to be met, and
Yep.
I've got restrictions against what can meet that need. Where's the loophole?
What can you do to correct it?
What can I do to correct it? How do I change? How often do I need to change? You know, two things came out of that. I learned that it's not impossible to make income when you need to make income. It just looks different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you can't get a job, you could still make money. And the other thing I learned from that is that no matter what job I get, and I didn't have words for it back then. I didn't actually have words for it until I was in banking. And a very wealthy Jewish client of mine sat me down and asked me a few questions, which I'll pass on to you.
Oh yeah, you know, we got to get those questions. So we'll keep going with this, but I definitely want to hear those questions.
Yeah. Bottom line, no matter what job I go into or what workforce I go into, I'm still signing a contract for pay, for whatever benefits that come with
Mm-hmm.
that pay, and for whatever I need to complete my portion of that contract. I am still a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
right? Only difference is, as an employee, I have the option to pretend that I'm not.
Correct.
I have the option to ignore the fact that as the business loses its revenue stream, I'm out. I have the option to pretend that if the business, my client, ever gets upset at me, I'm out. Pretend those things don't really exist, right? I have the option to pretend that if they do anything shady, I can somehow sue them or fight the issue in court in a way that's somehow magically different than another business suing another business.
Mm-hmm.
There's just it's easier to try and not make going back to that structured thing that I was
Mm-hmm.
talking about. In an effort for independence, we sacrifice our ability to be responsive, and ultimately that makes us dependent. Because if you can't be responsive in business, you can't be responsive as an employee, right?
Yep.
You're constantly showing up, sucking at the teat of this paycheck,
Yep.
hoping it doesn't go away,
Yep.
um, pretending like it'll always be there. And that's a very scary place to be, because you're choosing, to some extent, ignorance over your situation, um, over a finite system of gains, um, which means you're not in it for the long haul. You're in it for as long as they'll have you.
That's good. That's real good. Cause yeah, you you know, there's so many people as employees that will, you know, they get a job and then they take a lack of accountability in a sense because they don't have that entrepreneurial or business owner mindset to realize you do own your job. You're paid to perform a task. Should you never perform that task anymore, you will be fired or consequences will occur. And then that paycheck that you are depending on is no longer going to be there. What are you going to do when that paycheck is no longer there to look forward to? That's when people get creative rather than doing it beforehand and utilizing that paycheck to be creative to create other streams of income.
Yeah. Most people get that they have tasks they need to complete.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them get to a point where they're able to complete just those tasks.
Yep. Nothing more.
Nothing more. Or if it's something more, it's not from the perspective of what's actually earning the business money and giving them the ability to pay you.
Oh.
Right? It's something more from the aspect of a need within the company, but it's not a production need. It's every company has efficiency needs or cleanliness needs, or like cleanliness.
Yep.
Doesn't make the business any amount of money.
Yep.
And it's really only important if people are walking into the business regularly. It could detract from money, but it won't make money.
Yep.
And as an employee, if you're not careful, you could pretend like you don't have to imagine the impact you're having on the business. Because you could pretend the business will just tell you if you're doing something wrong or right.
True.
And that's just not true. Yeah, of course the business is going to try and reward you in little ways and make you feel special, because ultimately that's better than paying you. But at the same time, it's not like they're telling you that you're making the business money, and it's not like you're showing up to the table saying, "Hey, look, I made you an extra $500,000 last year. I think I deserve the opportunity to make more money."
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I'm making you 500,000, I need 100. There's the rule of thirds. An employee who you just hire, who's new out the gate, is actually going to cost you double to produce any one thing. So you pay them a third of what you charge other people. It costs you two, because they're doing a bunch of stuff that's not actually making money.
Right.
You pay taxes, you pay benefits, and at the end of it, you make 10% as a business owner. And your goal is to get the employee to the point where, instead of it costing you 2/3 of the money, it only costs you that third. And you start to give the employee raises so that they get back up to the 2/3. They're just doing things more efficiently over time. That's a concept most employees just don't think about, because they've never looked.
So my question could be to you is, how do you get a person out of that mindset to put them into the mindset of caring about what they're bringing in?
You start by just making them aware of it.
Okay.
I sat down, and one of my favorite questions was that this guy gave half of his wealth to Israel. He gave $150 million away. And he stops me one day, and he, while I'm working with him as my client, he says, "Hey, Daniel, what's the difference between a Jew who works for himself and a Jew who works for somebody else? Keep in mind, all Jews work."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Jew who works for somebody else realizes he only has one client. He or she only has one client. Being able to articulate that when you no longer actively and proactively provide enough value for the business to sustain you,
Mm-hmm.
and to also be able to analyze whether or not the business is the type of client you want to have,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those two things, if they're out the window, you're at a great risk of being dispensable and of being underpaid for your efforts. And is that really a spot you want to be in?
Me personally, no.
And so being able to ask that question and articulate it that way, that's a good way to start the process. It's going to take time to
Yep.
understand money matters, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So that's where I'd start. So I just start with, do you want to be this vulnerable? Because most people are like, what? I'm vulnerable? Very vulnerable.
Yeah, but it's not until they actually realize it through, I guess, practical application of an experience that somebody else either went through or seeing it for themselves. Like, for example, the government shutdown. That just happened. A lot of people realize, okay, I am vulnerable, and it's not anything I can do about it with this situation, but I can proactively prepare myself for the next one, or by starting a business, or getting creative while they were without money during that time frame. For the ones, go ahead.
Phil DeFranco interviewed a bunch of people who were first forced to work without pay,
Mm-hmm.
and then unable to continue working
Mm-hmm.
for the government. And every single one of them said, this is supposed to be the most stable job out there. It's the government around the longest in this country, right? Most stable job. That that's a hard spot to be in, and that's a lack of education on the part of our. That's a purposeful lack of education, if not an active degradation of education on the part of the U.S. social economy.
Mm-hmm.
Spent such a large amount of money to try and educate people to go to college to get a good job, and to pull away from this idea of, it was the easy route. It
Yep.
was the easy route to go to college because getting a degree meant you got a job, right? You didn't even have to try after that point because so few people had degrees.
Right.
And now we have evidence that isn't going to hold true forever, right? Because there's some doctorates out there that are having a hard time getting employed.
That's true.
And the reality of it is that everything that we have is just a tool by which we can negotiate, by which we can utilize our abilities, our newfound abilities to make something happen.
There you go.
And we've spent so much time to argue against that, and to argue against things like small business. You're taking such a risk. We're completely ignoring that risk is in everything. And we're completely ignoring that the whole reason that the college system was such a hot commodity at first was that somebody paid attention, noticed that the college system was a hot commodity in avenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that those avenues pull up in different ways throughout time. Somebody pay attention to that.
Oh.
We lost our ability to pay attention to what avenue is bringing in the best revenue. And that's got to change.
Oh. So let me ask you, what books do you read currently, or like any books that you recommend for a person to read?
Give me one more second here.
Perfectly fine.
Sorry for the transitions.
It's all good.
So, to answer your question about what books I recommend reading and what books I am reading, um, right now I'm reading the 4 Hour Work Week. But before I even get into the 4 Hour Work Week, I highly recommend that you read uh, shoot, what is it? Never Split the Difference.
Never split the difference. Okay.
Yeah, Never Split the Difference. Negotiate like your life depends on it, because it does. Um, I remember my favorite part about that is it's just the average Joe who wrote it, who turned out to not be the average Joe because he took every opportunity he could to learn how to negotiate while working for a police academy, or not a police academy, but police force first,
Oh man, I think we're
and
breaking
then in the
up.
FBI second, and then from officer to being one of the. I'm breaking up.
Yeah, we
One
broke up
sec.
for a minute. All right. It's still choppy.
Can you hear me again?
Now I can.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
You
I
okay?
realized how hard of an environment that was going to be for continuing this interview. Um, my apologies. So essentially, what I
Yeah,
was
you was
saying is Never
mentioning.
Split the Difference
Yep.
is a book written by a policeman who became an FBI, who then became one of the most feared negotiators in white collar business. And the whole ability to do that came from his desire to learn how to negotiate better. He started
Okay.
with suicide. He started with the suicide hotline. Uh, Through that, got into being an FBI agent who began to do hostage negotiations, and from that, got into white collar business, where he began to negotiate the best contracts out there.
Man.
Yeah. And one of his favorite lines is whenever somebody gives him something that isn't where it needs to be for him, right?
Yep.
He turns to people and he says, "Well, how am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to operate on that? How am I supposed to make that happen?" Right? How am I supposed to make $20,000 work in this situation? Um, because it puts it back on the other person. They have to answer that question suddenly, right? And if they can't answer it, they got to offer you more money, or they got to offer you something else. But at the same time, it forces the other person to be in your shoes, and it creates empathy without them even really thinking about it. So, never split the difference. I highly recommend. The Entrepreneurial Starter Kit is another book that I recommend reading. I feel like there's a third book that's on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't get to it right now.
It's all right.
Yeah, I recommend those two books at the very least before you get into the 4-Hour Work Week.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss's book. Yeah, that's a different read.
It's a good read, but the 4-Hour is basically how to learn
leveraging.
to be not just leverage, but be aware of the cost of doing business, and how to be aware of what's required to be able to do that business. Those are the two biggest points in that book, because the whole argument for the new rich is, if I go somewhere else, if I telecommute in a place that costs me a third or a fifth of what it does to live in the US, right? All of a sudden, a ton of new options open up for passive income.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the money to invest into something. I've got the time to invest into something. I've got the ability to invest into something, and I still got plenty left over to live like a rich guy yet. Yeah.
So I know that you mentioned international travel too. Like, how many times have you done internationally? Traveled internationally? Could you hear me? I'm sorry.
You cut out for just a second. Go ahead.
Okay.
How many times?
Have you traveled internationally?
Well, I've obviously been to Mexico and Canada. Those aren't real big travel distances. I've been to Germany and India on top of that. And I plan to go to Japan in the next year or two as well.
Nice.
I'll actually be moving to India in about a year as well. So
Wow.
there's that. My wife has been to 34 countries.
Whew.
I've been through 48 states. Travel is something that we've both done a lot of.
Nice. So I guess when it comes to international travel, like what suggestions would you give to a person that hasn't traveled internationally? Like, what did they say? Like, I don't know anybody. Like, how do I understand the culture and things like that? Like, what advice could you give to somebody that hasn't traveled internationally? And would you recommend them doing it by themselves or going with somebody?
It's always more fun to go with people.
Yep.
However, going with people can sometimes make it hard to really experience what you're doing in traveling.
Yep.
So it's good to bring some along with you if you can, and have the option of meeting up with them periodically. It's great if you could carve out time just to go and experience things full on and travel. Be very prepared in the sense that you have knowledge of how to look things up. Your cell phone may not work everywhere. How do you make it work?
Oh.
How do you map out the places you're going to be in, and know how to find or get access to the information you need to make a decision on something? Because ultimately, when you're traveling to a new place where you don't speak the language and nobody talks the same way
Mm-hmm.
that you do, you could find yourself in a position where you're lost in the middle of some place because you don't speak the language and your driver decided to drop you off someplace different than where you were trying to go. And you know, if you don't have an answer to that, the world looks a lot more scary than it is.
I can
Um,
imagine so.
yeah, I mean, I did Boy Scouts for a few years. I know how to survive in a forest where there's no civilization for miles around. I can, you know, trap food. I can build huts. I can make my own fire. Um, I know how to do all these things. I mean, I can survive when there's no people around.
Oh,
It doesn't feel the same when there's a ton of people around that I just can't relate to. That feels more isolating,
yep.
right? So learn how to use barter language as soon as you can. Get yourself into a situation where you have access to Wi-Fi and can look things up. Download maps. Google Maps gives you the option to download maps to an area so that even when you're not on Wi-Fi, you can still look things up. Um, just be aware of the fact that you're not going to be able to go and ask somebody for help 99% of the time, and what you need to do to keep yourself safe and healthy and happy, and you'll be fine. Uh, it'll actually be an adventure that's exciting because you'll be experiencing something new all the time. Um, and that's something every human being craves, is this experience of new information that we can learn and grow from.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Yeah. So
All right. So my last question for you, I definitely want to, pick your brain more in the future and learn things, and just see what other else you're learning, what else you have going on. But my last question for you is, what's a message that you want to leave for other people? So I noticed that everybody gets a chance to exist. Everybody gets a chance to exist. Not everybody gets a chance to live. And then not everybody gets a chance to share something that they've experienced from their life. So here's my chance to you, like, to leave a message for everybody, because you've lived. You just said you traveled through 48 states and to Germany, to India, possibly moving to India in the future. Got businesses, raising a foster home, mom situation, stepdad situation. Like that's a life you've learned. So what message would you like to pass on to somebody else?
um, I've got several, but
I'll take them. I'll take them.
okay. The primary thing that I'd say is that this world's a big bucket. Uh, no matter where you are on the pile inside that bucket, everything we add to it eventually rises to the top. For me, at least, that means put more good into the
Okay.
world, so the world has more good to give.
Okay.
Um, and aside from that, is brokenness is probably the most common language out there.
Hmm.
When you learn to recognize that and you learn to see the woundings in the people around you, you can learn not only the places you need to be gentle with, but also the abilities of the people you're interacting with to perform the way that you might want to expect them to perform. And that gives you a sense of safety and a sense of empathy that's necessary to survive a world that is constantly trying to hit us where it hurts. And not only that, it gives us joy and the ability to pursue making a difference in the lives of others. And a sense of not only purpose is too small a word, a sense of impact.
I was gonna say fulfillment. Yeah, but I get you. Impact, fulfillment. Yep.
Yep. That you can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two things I would leave with you. This is probably the two things I focus on almost every day.
Nice. There you go. Hey, you definitely made an impact on my life. Because you provided me with a lot of great value. Gave me an opportunity to one, chase my dream, which is just like learn from other people what they have to say. Everybody, you can't go through, I can even say 1 year in this life and say you didn't learn anything. Like you had some type of experiences that you could talk about. So,
The real question is, did you learn everything you could?
That's a good question. You're gonna learn something. Whether that's everything you could have, I don't know, but you did learn something. And I just want to give people the opportunity to share what they have learned. It's not for profit for me. This is for it's like a passion. And if it turns into something for profit in the future, great. But that's not why I'm doing it. Like I genuinely feel that people should have a voice and opportunity to share something with other people. So, I definitely thank you for you taking the time out to speak with me and share your value.
Of course. So we could probably stop the recording portion of this
Okay.
if you'd like.
Okay.